Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Silver Years. My name is DK. I'm very happy to be here, and I humbly thank you for joining me. Today, I'd like to talk about forgiveness and what it means to forgive from a different angle. What sparked my interest in this topic? Well, it began with a question I was recently asked by a friend. I was asked if I could ever forgive little Beta for his abuse. And for those who haven't listened to the My Storytime four-part series titled The Saga of Husband Number One, Little Beta was my first husband. I'll put a link to part one if you're interested in listening to that. It was a good question, a fair question, and timely, since I was in the middle of putting together some of my old backstory for this My Storytime segment I just referenced in an attempt to bring closure to a 50-year chapter from my life that needed closing. Of course, I barely scratched the surface in that four-part series, but it was enough to bring to the surface some old wounds that were in need of healing. But the topic of this video today is not just about what it means to forgive little Beta. It's about what it means to forgive as a practice based on my current experience and inner standing. I think it's probably best to start this off by bringing clarity and a common understanding to what I mean by the word forgive. The dictionary defines the act of forgiving as to give up resentment against or to stop wanting to punish someone for an offense or fault, to pardon. This is what I'd call the secular interpretation. For many in this country, however, whether they're aware of it or not, what it means to forgive and why it's important has biblical connotations rooted primarily in the New Testament, where the emphasis on forgiveness is a key principle. Now, I'll quote here some example verses by way of explanation, such as, okay, here's a verse: Be kind to one another, tenderhearted, forgiving one another as God in Christ forgave you. Now, that was from Ephesians. Here's a verse from John. For if you forgive others their trespasses, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. But if you do not forgive others their trespasses, neither will your Father forgive your trespasses. No, that was from Matthew. Then there's forgive and you will be forgiven. That's from Luke. Or this one, and whenever you stand praying, forgive if you have anything against anyone, so that your Father also, who is in heaven, may forgive your trespasses. That one was from Mark. The difference between the secular interpretation of the word forgive and the biblical interpretation lies in one's motivation for forgiving. When I look at the dictionary's secular interpretation, I find that the core impetus for forgiveness is self motivated. In other words, the act of forgiving comes from within and is self directed. In other words, to give up resentment, that's an act. To stop wanting to punish, that's an act. To pardon, that's an act that comes from within. When I look at the biblical motivation for forgiveness, I find fear and obligation at its core. If you want God's blessing, then you better forgive, because if you don't forgive, God will not forgive you and bless you. It's like a tit for tat thing. You got to forgive so that you can get forgiven. I wonder how anyone can truly forgive anything when they're afraid of eternal damnation, if you will. when they don't. And clearly, some things are harder to forgive than other things. And yet, we're told God allows these things that harm us to happen. Is this when we're supposed to turn the other cheek? Just asking. Anyway, the reality on the ground with this is just because you choose to forgive another or you choose to right a wrong you may have inflicted on another does not mean in any way that they will choose to forgive you in return. Forgiveness, in my experience, is a one sided, very personal thing for the most part. It benefits the one doing the forgiving the most. And let me add, as an aside and food for thought, that any truly loving, non judgmental Creator God will never need to forgive you for anything because you were never judged in the first place. The real judgment comes from within us and is usually rooted in our generational and social programming, our belief systems, and our epigenetics. Of course, what I'm talking about here is forgiveness due to human error and the like. Willful acts that are inflicted with an intent to harm another, acts that are committed with malicious intent, can be another issue altogether when it comes to finding forgiveness. So, when my friend asked me if I could ever forgive little Beta, I said no. It's not my place to forgive him for anything. The one I needed to forgive was myself, not him, not the answer she was expecting, but it was the truth all the same. Because from where I sit, the purpose of forgiveness is to heal, self heal first. Self heal through the peace that comes from no longer allowing the pain from a wound to take up energetic space in my reality. Something we all need to do for ourselves in order to affect positive change, not only in our lives, but in the realm around us where those we seek to forgive reside. When we heal enough to forgive, we change the frequency of things. And healing is a process, just like everything else. It's rarely a one and done thing. And typically, healing comes in layers. Just when you think you've cleared one layer, another deep layer that requires more healing will often appear. Healing is also a frequency, just as forgiveness is a frequency. Remember what I always say, everything is frequency. Your thoughts are frequencies. Your emotions are frequencies. Your emotional pain is a frequency. Frequencies create our reality. Frequencies create everything. Anger and resentment and hate as emotions are all frequencies too. When these emotions take up space in our energetic bodies, they create frequency distortions within us. And for some of us, these distortions can last a lifetime without ever getting resolved or neutralized. Neutralized here being the operative word. Sometimes things between people just can't be resolved, whatever the reason. But the energetic impact these things have on our lives can be neutralized. To remain angry or resentful with another over a perceived offense is to remain in a low vibration relationship with that person, whether they are physically in our daily lives or not. They say time heals, and it can. The passing of time can be helpful when it comes to healing and forgiveness because with time and maturity can come wisdom and the ability to see a situation from many different sides and perspectives. It may not excuse what was done, but it can assist in neutralizing the emotional impact when we're able to see all sides. And to me, that's the objective: neutralizing the emotional impact. When we go neutral, the anger, pain, or resentment no longer holds power over us. It loses its influence in more ways than one because the frequency of the entire dynamic changes once it's been neutralized. So for me, what I needed to do with little beta was not forgive him, but to neutralize my emotions with regard to his continued toxic behavior toward me. I learned long ago that any anger I would direct toward him only fed the beast, which meant that my anger toward him usually came back to hurt me, bounced back like a boomerang. And that was not what I wanted. I can't change him, but I can change the energetic playing field. When you go neutral, the field no longer holds a negative charge or a distortion that things can stick to. Once I could go neutral, I could allow myself to heal. In the process of healing, I could find acceptance, and forgiveness. But it wasn't forgiveness of him or his abusive behavior. The forgiveness was for myself. I needed to forgive myself for not choosing better, for not taking better care of myself, for allowing myself to get trapped in harm's way, for not protecting myself and my children better, for not loving myself more. The list was long, but the forgiveness was for me. He was what he was, and he is what he is. And he has shown no desire to change that. This is where I find and have had to find acceptance. It was on me to navigate around and away from his influence as best I could. To forgive myself was to set better boundaries based on how he really was and not how I hoped it would be. To forgive doesn't mean to forget. In fact, by not forgetting my experiences and what he was capable has allowed me to make better personal choices, choices that benefit and protect me. Bottom line for me today is that he holds no energetic space in my world. He has become merely an old story, which makes him powerless because I chose to accept him for what he is, as I chose to forgive myself and reset the frequency of my life through emotional neutrality and better boundaries. I'd like to share one amazing technique I've used over the last decade or so that has helped me tremendously in my process of healing and forgiving. It's a traditional Hawaiian practice aimed at reconciliation and healing, and it's called ho'oponopono. The Hawaiian interpretation of the word breaks down as ho'o, H-O apostrophe O, ho'o means to make, and pono, P-O-N-O, means right. The repetition of pono means to make doubly right. So the word itself, ho'oponopono, means to make doubly right. And the word ho'oponopono, when spoken, holds a solfeggio frequency of 528 hertz. It falls within that 369 of Nikola Tesla's frequency range, the 528 being a 6, which is often referred to as the love frequency. And the love frequency is known for its healing properties. Ho'oponopono. Ho'oponopono. The essence of the practice of Ho'oponopono is to restore harmony in relationships and within oneself. And the practice of it centers around saying four phrases. Those phrases being, I'm sorry, please forgive me, I love you, and thank you. Now, this practice, this Ho'oponopono, is easily researched on the internet if you're interested in giving it a try and want to learn more. Like I said, it has been a powerful healing tool for me over the years. Now, let me just say here as a reminder, like most of the things I discuss on my channel, this topic is extremely multi-layered and multifaceted, which means that it's not just one thing that makes it all so. It's many layers of things over time that has gotten us to where we are today. What I'm trying to shed light on here are simply some of the significant factors that I've observed when it comes to our collective understanding of what it means to forgive in daily practice. All said, in the end, I feel it's our responsibility to get educated, to learn as much as we can about how we can improve our relationship with ourselves, and that includes the act of self forgiveness and establishing personal boundaries. This may also include finding a pathway to acceptance of a situation or a person, followed by the act of neutralizing any emotional distortions we might hold regarding that situation or person. It's all in the frequency of things, and our frequency is ours to manage. So before I go, I'd like to leave you with a question to ponder, as I like to do. If you were to forgive yourself for something, what would it be? Please leave your comments below. And also, please consider liking and sharing this video and subscribing to this channel to help it grow. Your participation is greatly appreciated. So until next time, be well, choose love, and thank you. Thank you for listening. Goodbye for now.